Hello, and welcome to Stephoodle. I am, repeatedly, Steph. And this month I decided to finish the project I started before I had to take a hiatus a few months ago. I thought it would be a way to take it easy this month, but golly gosh was I wrong. But let's get to the doll first, shall we? I made this doll based on Étoile from Animal Crossing back in 2020, as part of the first ever collab I hosted on Instagram to celebrate the release of Animal Crossing New Horizons. Since then, the gloss varnish I used on her eyes and horns became sticky and yellowed and gross. She definitely needs some help. I remove her head and her wig. Back then I was too scared to glue wefts directly onto the head for some reason. Then I use acetone to remove her face and the glue residue left on her head. For those curious about the base doll on this one, I used an Ever After High Bunny Blanc head and a Monster High Dracula R body. I was surprised at how stained her face was from the yellow pastel I used, but I'll be able to cover that up during the face up. She has a split in her part line, so I used some super glue to close it up. I mixed acrylic paint with Mod Podge and paint her scalp in preparation for the reroute. This is what I should have done for Polaris in the last video. I used some thin washi tape to map out where I want her new part to be and mark it with a Posca pen. I decided to reroute with this awesome super curly nylon in a couple of shades of purple and some yellow for highlights. I separate a strand from the hank and cut it. I wrap the strand around my finger, scoop it up with my reroute tool, and stab it into the head. And I continue to do this over and over, mixing in the other colors as I felt like, until the whole head is done. I squeeze some all-purpose glue in through the neck hole and spread it around with a Q-tip, making sure all the plugs are covered. I let it dry overnight, and then I can mask off the hair and spray the head with a couple of layers of Mr. Super Clear UV Cut Flat, waiting 30 minutes in between each layer. And now it's time for the face-up. I followed the mold pretty closely this time. I used a pink watercolor pencil to draw the shape of her eyes. And I used this light pink PanPastel over several layers to help mask the discoloration from the previous face-up. I think I must have been having a hard time with the sealant, so I went in with a brush to fill in the scleras with white. I also begin to add heavy blushing with pastels. 1, because I just really like heavy blushing, and 2, because it will also help cover up the staining on the vinyl. I keep working back and forth with my watercolor pencils and pastels, and whenever I want to save my progress or I can't build up any more color, I spray another layer of MSC. I decided to give her star eyebrows this time since Étoile is based on the little twin stars from Sanrio. So, I did this face up back in March. I was trying to get the doll done before I had to move, but ended up having to shelve it and filmed that G3 Ghoulia unboxing to post instead. There wasn't much left for this project to be done, just painting her horns, reattaching her head, cutting and styling her hair. So I picked it up this month as a quote-unquote easy project. And unfortunately, it turned out to be a very rough and difficult process. I guess I still had a lot of emotions tied to this project because of what was happening in my life at the time. And working on her stirred up all of those emotions again. And I, silly me, had not expected it. I don't really want to go into what was going on and the reasons for my hiatus a few months ago, as that's deeply personal. But I ended up having to work very slowly and on one thing at a time, taking frequent breaks. And even then, I've been kind of an emotional mess this whole month. I probably should have waited a little bit longer before returning to this project, but you know what? Finishing this project is a win, and I'll take it. I gave her triangular catch lights as a callback to her eyes in the game. And with a dusting of golden sparkle, her face-up is done. I'm going to remake her horns using CosClay. After kneading the clay to soften it, I cut it into 2 pieces and roll them into long teardrop shapes before coiling them around into a horn shape. After baking, I started painting them with yellow acrylic paint.
Several months later.
Once I picked this project back up, I gave the horns a coat of white paint before going back in with the yellow so that the color would be a bit brighter. I used a Posca pen to draw some guides for the stripes and painted them in gold, one at a time to make sure that they were even on both horns. And in between the gold stripes, I touched up the yellow to make the stripes crisp. Once I'm done painting and it's completely dry, I gave them a couple of coats of gloss varnish, a different one this time than the one I used back then, and I like it a lot better. I removed the old horns from the headband, and just look at the difference. The old ones are so gross. I used hot glue to attach the new horns to the headband. At this point, I decided I should clean up the stars as well, which were originally star-shaped beads that I painted. So I pulled them off, sanded them a little bit, and gave them a fresh coat of paint. I glossed them too, and glued them back on the headband. Now her shoes. I did try to save the ones she already had, gluing chipped pieces of clay back on, filling in cracks, going over the paint, but I just wasn't going to be happy with them. I know I can do much better. So I decided to paint these shoes I found in my stock box instead. They're from the Disney Comfy Princess line, but they seem to fit Monster High just fine. I was able to get her old shoes off without really any damage, so I'll keep them somewhere since I do really like them in concept, but yeah, let's give her some new shoes. I gave the shoes a base coat of white, and then go in with the colors. Lilac for the tongue, pink for the inner upper, and blue for the outer uppers. Originally I painted one shoe pink and one shoe blue like the old pair, but I thought that the split color would look much better, and I was right. I used a bamboo skewer to delicately apply gold paint to the grommets, and then paint the laces yellow. And I used my yellow Posca to add a little bit of shading since it's darker than the paint I was using. To cover up the crown logos, I punched some circles out of craft foam and painted them a lighter pink. Before the paint was dry, I placed some star-shaped glitter pieces on top, which I later painted yellow. And I sealed them in with matte Mod Podge. I used some all-purpose glue to attach them to the shoes, and held them in place with sewing clips and a bit of extra foam while they dried for cushioning. Then I gave the shoes a couple of coats of matte Mod Podge to finish them off. Off camera, I reattached her head and cut her hair. I went a bit shorter than I had originally planned, but I think it turned out really cute. And with that, she's all done. It was a bumpy and emotional ride getting here, but I'm pleased with the result. It's really cool to see how much my skills have improved over the last few years. What do you think of Étoile? Do you like Animal Crossing? Who is your favorite villager? It's extremely difficult for me to choose, but I do love a lot of the sheep, including Étoile, Muffy, and Pietro. And Hazel and Stitches are faves of mine too. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you'd like to see more from me, and click the bell icon and turn on all notifications to make sure you know whenever I post a new video. All of my socials will be linked down below. I'm most active on Instagram, and if you really like what I do and you want to buy me a coffee, a link to my Ko-fi tip jar will be down in the description below, or you can click on the Super Thanks button right below this video. And until next time, bye!